Hello and welcome to Secure The Insecure, hosted by Johnny Seifert. This is the Celebrity Mental Health Podcast where I say it's okay to not be okay. And if you have the same mantra as me, then before we get to today's guest, if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, click that follow button, leave a 5-star rating and leave a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, hi, leave a comment, click the follow button, click the subscribe button and leave a like, thumbs up. It's so important we keep spreading the word. It's okay to not be okay. And that's exactly what I want to do on this episode. In this episode, this is all part of the Secure The Insecure BookClub, where I speak to some of my favourite authors about the mental health themes in their book. This week, my guest has written 3 novels, and they're so good, always about friendship, but there's so many good mental health themes that come out of it as well. The book this week is Something for Beginners. It's with Nicola Gill, and I'm delighted that she joins me on Secure The Insecure to talk about those themes. Welcome, Nicola.
Hello, nice to be here.
Thanks so much for doing this for me. So let's start with setting the scene of the book, because I'm always worried I'm going to give away too many spoilers, so if you said then I can't get in trouble.
I guess the book summed up in a couple of sentences is you've got this woman Loretta who avoids the sort of messy things in life like people and relationships, and then she's asked by a complete stranger in an airport departure lounge to keep an eye on her sleeping child Phoebe while she nips to the loo, but then the stranger never comes back. And obviously, in that moment, Phoebe's life is going to change forever, but actually, so is Loretta's.
So, as you've mentioned, we've got Loretta and Phoebe. Loretta, who's 31 years old, Phoebe, who's 6 years old. And we see, although we've got a relationship that ends up kind of being godmother to goddaughter style, but in essence, it's all about a friendship. And a friendship between a 31-year-old and a 6-year-old. So, talk to me about those friendships that you've had in your life where that person is a little bit older than you or a little bit younger than you, and what you've learned from them.
We can be drawn to people because superficially they seem to have a lot in common with us. But actually, when you get to know people better, you can actually form connections with people that maybe, you know, on the surface you wouldn't have thought were necessarily for you.
And I think it's interesting with that especially with older people, a lot of people who are girls, stereotypically in their late teens, early 20s, work in care homes for a bit of extra help and whatever. And the relationships they build there are so powerful because it always tends to be that they've got all these life lessons they're being given, because older people have gone through so many experiences over their lifetime that they can pass down their words of wisdom and pay it forward. Have you had anything like that in your life?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I would say that I've got friends of all ages. So I've got a whole group of people that I describe as my work children because they're the sort of age that they could actually be my kids, but you know, they're great pals. And then I've got older friends too, and as you say, they've got all sorts of things to offer and all sorts of life experience and wisdom that they share. So I don't think for a second that someone has to be the same age as you to be friends with them. And we have different types of friendships, don't we, at different times in our life. And maybe you connect with someone at a certain time because you're both going through a similar thing or something.
Yeah, and also I think taking it a step further is, I always like this analogy about the hand. So we've got a hand with 5 fingers on it, or 4 fingers and a thumb, and each finger represents a different one of your close friends and the personality traits they bring out in you. So one friend make you a bit more silly, one makes you a bit more flirty, one's your lad, one's the one who has the deep chat, etc., etc. And I think this is it, that when you're around people who are older than you, you have got something in common, whether it's to do with your culture, your upbringing, your background, you're from the same town. And I do think that you can just be that other version of yourself that you're not going to be in other scenarios. We know that if you're in a classroom at school, you're not going to be like you are if you're going to a nightclub with your friends. And so
Exactly.
I think that's where being around people who are a lot older teach you these amazing values in life, but also that it's okay to be yourself. You don't have to be the Jack the Lad and try to be someone to be part of this sense of belonging.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And I think the other thing is that, you know, you different at different times in your life, you know, people bring out different things in you. So yes, I think it's really interesting. It's a really interesting mix.
Let's talk about Loretta being 31 years old, because it's such a pinnacle number. Not normal people would go for 30, you go for 31. But let's look at Loretta in her 20s compared to her 30s. Talk to me about the values that she was holding in her 20s, because, for example, as we've already mentioned, she didn't know if she wanted kids. She didn't really like being around kids, but she seemed to be that type of character that was very much in her own world and quite liked it actually like that.
Loretta is really a woman with a plan. She's really focused. You know, she really is doing well at work and she's got her eyes on a promotion. She's marrying a man whose 5-year plan perfectly aligns with hers. That's a whole other dimension to the story, because maybe or maybe not is he the right person for her. But at the beginning of the book, certainly, you know, she thinks, oh, you know, our goals are very aligned. And I suppose it's worth saying that it's not a story sort of suggesting for a second that everyone should love kids or want to become a parent, not for a second. And I don't think, I mean, Loretta does change throughout the story, but she doesn't really suddenly become this sort of Pied Piper character who's brilliant with children, not at all. You know, that was never the point to sort of say, oh, you know, everyone should have kids, because clearly, you know, it's right for some people and it's not right for others. It's very much a personal choice. I suppose what I was trying to achieve is that their relationship sort of transcends all what you would think are the barriers. Loretta doesn't really like kids. She doesn't really want to get involved in this situation. None of this is something that she's picked. So she's someone who very much likes to be in control of her life, but this all bubbles out of a really random event. How many times have you, I don't know, just been asked to keep an eye, maybe not on a stranger's child, but on a stranger's bag or something, or what have you? And when she's asked in this airport, you know, my child's asleep, I need to nip to the loo, can you just keep an eye? She's not particularly thrilled about it, but it doesn't seem like a big deal. It's like, well, this woman's going to be back in a few minutes. So it's never something that she plans. And I think the thing about Loretta is that she plans pretty much everything else.
So reflecting that onto your life, Nicola, how have you delved into those sort of situations in everyday life? When have you been in that position where you've had to do something that's a little bit different to the norm that you would be doing normally?
Kind of every day, really, right? Because I think that if any of us think that we're in control of life, it's an illusion, because, you know, it can throw anything at you at any time. And I think you can be chugging along nicely and you can feel like you've got everything together, and then something happens that just, you know, throws you off, good or bad, actually. So whether it's because you meet someone romantically, or you meet someone who has this, you know, this brilliant career opportunity might open up, or whether it's a bad thing like someone being ill or losing someone, you just never quite know what's going to happen. I mean, I suppose the most dramatic example of that, the most extreme example of that, is when you lose someone that you love very much. So, you know, for me, I lost my dad when he was relatively young, just 62, and he just dropped dead of a heart attack. And that was just an incredible shock, you know, nothing that any of us saw coming, and just it destabilizes the whole family. But you have to just keep going somehow and muddling through. And I suppose you find a new version of yourself, maybe.
Talk to me about that new version. How old were you when he died?
I think I was 30, so not a baby, but definitely I wasn't ready. I mean, are you ever? I guess would be the question. I was extremely close to my dad, so I don't think I would ever have been ready, but I think that maybe I would have got to an age where it was happening more to, you know, people of that sort of age, and it would have seemed, I would have expected it more. That's just how it is, isn't it? We don't really know what tomorrow has in store for us. So Loretta, you know, to go back to the book, you know, Loretta goes to that airport and she's focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's this work trip that she's going on, and how she's going to perform and how she's going to get her presentation ready and do really well and the rest of it. She does not expect to suddenly have this child come into her life. It's not in the plan.
But this is what's really interesting about her, and ditto to your journey as well. She was 18 when she went through this big trauma, and we know she coped with it with running. Running was her catharsis for it.
Yeah.
When you were 30 and you're going through this trauma and you didn't really know how to deal with it, and you're still trying to work out who you were, you know, it was 10 years afterwards that you actually became an author. How did you deal going through that trauma? Was it the running, or was it actually that was your time to pull it into writing and actually just try and put pen to paper and just kind of make sense of this weird world that you're now in, age 30, trying to find out who you really are and what values and the purpose that you want to have going forward in your life?
I think that was a good question. I think it probably did push me a bit more towards actually starting to write. Grief as a theme does pop up in a lot of my book in some way or other. So I think there is definitely that going on. But also for me, when I lost my dad, and I wouldn't necessarily, this is just how it was. It's not, I'm not suggesting this is a particular method. I had very, very young children. So in a sense, you can't totally be engulfed by grief. You have to kind of keep going and maintaining a sense of routine and daily life. And I remember Nigella Lawson saying when she lost her first husband, I still have to make things nice here every day. And that really resonated with me, because I think that's what it's like. I had a 2.5-year-old and a baby. There wasn't a lot of space to, I was obviously very unhappy, but I had to just kind of on a certain level keep going.
It's that almost fight or flight mode, or you go into action mode because you've got to be responsible for everyone else. And if you stop, then everything stops. And then how are you ever going to pick yourself up? Whereas you keep going, you don't even think about the little traumas and dealing with that stuff. Did you go through any therapy to help you with that trauma?
Not so much, actually, but I was really lucky. Again, I just have the most incredible friends. And so, I definitely talked about it a lot. And I had a lot of support, and important, I think, to have people that you can, and again, going back to your point about, having different friends, it's all very well having your fun friends, but you need people that you can really you talk to when you don't feel fun and jolly and jokey, you feel really miserable and stuff. So yeah, I think it was friends that really helped.
Well, talking of friends, we've talked about the friendship angle of the book.
Yes.
The last angle we haven't discussed yet is the social anxiety angle Loretta's gone through. And we
Yes.
start in the book right at the beginning with her opening up about her social anxiety, and all the way through the book we see how this anxiety manifests itself. And it's so funny because I relate so much to so many of the little contributions that she does when it comes to social anxiety, because I massively suffer with it. And there's one thing that I absolutely loved, which is how she keeps a list of questions for when she's going to see someone to say, right, how was your day? How was this? And I do that with my friends. And a lot of my friends get really scared by it. Some know about it. Some will go, what's on the agenda today? And I'll go, right, here's all the list, what we adding to it. And we'll go through the list that I've made, that I've got the things I want to ask and the things that I want to tell. And then I'll say, okay, right, what are we adding to the list? And then we'll tick it off. Other friends get really scared by it. Where do you sit on if you were going to have a conversation with someone and they told you what you're going to be discussing, in what order?
Yeah, I think I'd be fine with it. And I think I would understand the place it's coming from, because that is someone who is maybe a bit more anxious about social situations, and that's their way of dealing with it, right? It's the sort of prepping for it. And I think that it's interesting with Loretta, because there are things about her which she herself describes as weird. She sees herself as being weird. But I think there are, to a greater or lesser extent, bits of Loretta in all of us, right? So that feeling of walking into a big party, say, where you don't really know anyone, and just thinking, no one's going to want to talk to me, and I don't know if I've got anything interesting to say anyway. I mean, I can relate to that. I think it's really human. And, the thing with Loretta is it's a bit of a vicious circle, because the more she convinces herself that she's weird, her word, not mine. Well, it is my word, but
the best thing an author's ever said to me.
I know.
Her words, not mine. Wow.
It shows we're all bonkers. The more she thinks, oh, she's weird, the more it feeds that anxiety, and it makes it worse.
Well, you manifest it even more so, because it's that whole thing of whatever you put out, you get in. And if you're going to manifest that and you're going to say you're weird, then you're kind of going to keep digging yourself that more and bigger hole. And then there's nowhere to go. What do you do, Nicola, when it comes to social anxiety? Because I imagine in the writing world, when you've got this pressure of publishers picking up your books, then you've got an audience who are going, right, You've got your third book out now, and you took so long to write this third book, which we won't talk about. The fourth one better be next year. I'm not waiting another 3 years for the next
The fourth
one.
one is next year.
Yes, she's finally learned. She's finally learned. So you've got your audience who are going, they've got an expectation based on your previous 2 books. You've got the Sunday Times that do their book list, which the publishers are looking at, you're looking at. It's a competitive world. What I like about the author world, though, is that no authors are against each other. No one's in battle like in other industries. But how do you slot into that when it comes to social anxiety? Do you ever get that imposter syndrome of, well, Richard Osman's going to release a new book, so no one's going to buy my book? Or do you think, look, I'm in my own lane, I'm doing my thing, I've got my style, my audience will do that?
All the time. All the time. I mean, imposter syndrome is, almost part of the job description for being an author. You definitely think, oh God, who's going to pick up my book if there's this book there or that book there or whatever. So definitely that happens. I would say that the author community, so other authors, are mostly very supportive of each other. And I have a number of other authors who I consider really, good friends now. But it is weird. It's a weird life because you spend so much of when you're writing the book, it's such a kind of solitary pursuit in a sense. Well, not in a sense, it is, it's just you and the computer. And then when you put the book out there, obviously what you want more than anything in the world is for lots and lots and lots of people to read it. But at the same time, when lots and lots of people read it and they have their thoughts and their feelings and which they're perfectly entitled to have, it's very personal. And for example, sometimes people on social media, most people, I will just caveat what I'm about to say by saying most people are absolutely lovely. And most of the messages I get from readers are so lovely and they really, really do mean a lot when you get a message from someone you've never even met and they're like, oh, I love the book and this really helped me with this or blah, whatever they say. So that's lovely. But occasionally readers will tag an author in a not very nice review. And of course, nothing is for everyone, right? Not everyone likes roast chicken. What's wrong with them? So when someone doesn't like it, intellectually, it doesn't, it's fine, right? But at the same time, it's still like, it's like someone looking at your baby and saying, oh, that baby's ugly.
And I think it's really hard when it comes to books. So I have my top, I don't know, let's say 15 to 20 authors who bring out a book every single year, which obviously you're included on. And so I know what I can expect from each one of those authors. And I know that I'm going to enjoy their book, whether it's a day, because I'll read a book in a day or a week, whatever it is. And then I've got my celebrity autobiographies or books that I need to read for the podcast or for work. And then I get sent loads of other books. And it's really hard to get used to a new author, I find, because you're looking for those little bits that you can relate to. So whether it's like a Richard Osman or a Tim Weaver book that have the same characters every single year, and you go, look, they're like my old friends. Whether it's a book like yours, which will come from the heart, whether it's a Jane Fallon book, which is about friendship, or an Adele Parks or a Lisa Jewell book, which is all about those little psychological thrillers where you know what to expect. That's fine. But the writing of a new book is really hard. And obviously you're writing to a mass audience who are going to either be like me reading it in the bath or, as you know, me walking up and down a swimming pool.
Yes,
but I think that's probably me. I think that's literally me that does it. People who read by the beach, people who buy it because they've seen it in the airport and go, oh, I just want to take a book, but I don't really think about it, but I like the front cover. And then you've got people who are your actual fans who are really invested in you. And so you probably don't even know who you're talking to, because it's not like a Love Island that goes out in the summer and you know that everyone's watching it, or it's a winter film that you're supposed to be watching with hot chocolate. You're talking to a mass audience. So how are you ever supposed to talk to everyone? It's not possible.
No, it's not possible. And I suppose, if I've learned anything as I've got older, and this is really difficult, is that not everyone's going to like me. And that's hard because I'm a inveterate people pleaser, but not everyone will like me. But in the same way, not everyone will like my books. They'll work for some people and not for others. And that's kind of how it is, isn't it? But it is difficult because it's difficult not to care because you put so much into it.
So bringing that together and everything else we've spoken about in the conversation, your book Swimming for Beginners. Final question for you, Nicola. What is your tip to knowing your true self? What is your tip for that beginner who's just first learning to swim to love themselves?
God, that is a big, quite final question, Johnny. I think you have to try not to mind so much what everyone else thinks. And you have to be the person that you can sleep at night and feel happy that you are kind and that you are being your best self, whatever that is. I don't mean in terms of, I don't mean, you know, every day you've got to run the 6 marathons, and I'm not talking about achievements. I'm talking about being a good, kind person. And if you can do that, then really worrying too much about what everyone else thinks, it's wasted energy, really.
Brilliant. Nicola Gill, your book, Swimming for Beginners, is out to buy now. I'm so delighted you're back on Secure The Insecure. I'm part of the Secure The Insecure Book Club. If you love hearing from your favourite authors, then please do check out the Secure The Insecure library. There's people like Amanda Prowse and the people I've mentioned, Jane Fallon, Adele Parks, Tim Weaver, Annabelle Knight, Matt Haig, all talking about their books and the mental health themes that come out of their books. And if you're listening on Spotify and iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, leave a review. Tell me you enjoyed it. Tell me you're going to go and buy Nicola's new book, Swimming for Beginners. It's such a good read. You're absolutely going to love it. And click that follow or subscribe button. And on YouTube, if you're watching, hi, leave that rating, leave the thumbs up, and give that subscribe button a click. It's so important we keep spreading the word. It's okay to not be okay. If you want to follow me on social media, at Johnny Seifert, at Secure The Insecure Podcast on Instagram, on TikTok, at Johnny Seifert92, and on Twitter, at Johnny Seifert. Go and check me out. I put loads of teasers of old episodes, and let's just keep spreading the word. It's okay to not be okay. I'm Johnny Seifert. Thanks so much for listening or watching. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.